Rob, first of all, I wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity and blessing us with this interview. Blessing us with your time. Um, Again, this is Rob Lamothe of the Riverdogs, and also solo artist, singer, songwriter, uh, guitarist, rocker. Everything in between.
Epic Records asks that you just give us a minute. Mark May 30th on your calendar. That day, Epic Records will introduce the Riverdogs. Rob Lamothe, Nick Brophy, and Vivian Campbell from Whitesnake and Dio. This is the Riverdogs. The lead track, Toy Soldier, on your desk May 30th. Epic Records thanks you for the minute.
So, Rob, love to hear. Would you share with us what is your project you're most proud of that you ever, was part of or done it by yourself? What is this? A project that
Ever?
ever?
Wow. Probably. I'm very proud of everything I get involved with because I really just say yes to projects that involve people that I really care about and really love, who are amazing artists. So I'm really proud of everything I've been involved with from day one, honestly. My wife and I were just talking this morning about, things I was involved with 30, 35 years ago. And there was a couple things where, there were some lawsuits and, a hard rock band borrowed two songs, borrowed two songs that I co-wrote, and they sold 3 million records. It was a band called Rat, and but I have no ill feelings. I'm very proud that, yes, we had to go through a lawsuit, and no,
Business
we
are
didn't get
business. Everyone's efforts, and there's the legalities involved. But you
Yep.
concentrate on the artistic part, and you always did.
Yeah, there was a time when the lawsuit was going on. It took a lot of years, almost 5 years, and in the end, they settled out of court, and it wasn't a ton of money, and I had some resentment for some amount of time. But looking back now, I'm very proud of it, and I'm very happy that I was involved with some of the players in that band, and I have no ill feelings towards them. And a project that I did that I released in Europe a couple of years ago in October, November of 2018 was a record I made with my two sons who are 28 and 31, and my daughter who just turned 24. Probably that's maybe the kind of crowning project for me. Just a real icing on the cake, you might say, or a crowning sort of achievement for me was getting to write and record an entire album with my grown children, right? So, and the goal was just to make something beautiful. And I try to keep that goal in every project, and I try not to get involved with things where I'm going to be worried about making money.
From my
So
side, I say that the results speak for themselves.
thank you. Yeah, and I do these things, and then making that record, it's called "And the River Reveals Herself," and there was so much time put into making it. It was just when my older son was going to be over for an afternoon, we worked on it. If my younger son, who's a drummer, was around, then we worked on drums, and they both sang on the record and played a bunch of instruments. And then my daughter sang on a bunch of songs and played piano on a couple songs. And so whenever she was around, then I would try and get her for, hey, you want to work on some lyrics, or want to work on some music? You want to record a vocal? You got any ideas? Total creative freedom. But I think that was because it was my daughter, my two sons. I think that was the most gratifying thing I've ever done artistically. And then my wife did did the artwork, did the design of the CD and all that. So it was a real family kind of labor of love. And some of my,
Fantastic.
some of my beautiful friends were involved as well, and filming some videos and things like that for it. So that was my number one for sure.
I can only imagine the feeling of accomplishing something like that, with all those loved ones involved. It must be something else.
Yeah, it was absolutely magical. I mean, really.
Sometimes I wonder what the neighbors must have thought they saw. You dancing in the window, me singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing to you when the world was new. Vampires on cell phones. Yeah, we live a life we choose. I talk the fire, take pictures with strangers. Yeah, we live a life we choose. Sometimes I wonder what the neighbors must have thought they saw. You dancing in the window, me singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing to you when the world was new. The archangel cranks up the karaoke machine, the crack of the transistor, the endless hallelujah. Yeah, we live the life we choose. I was inside the poem, looking out from between the words. Yeah, we live the life we choose. The crows keep on passing the word, from bird to bird to big black bird. Yeah, we live the life we choose. Sometimes I wonder what the neighbors must have thought they saw. You dancing in the window, me singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing to you when the world was wrong. I was singing to you when the world was new. Stardust and into the world. Ashes and rust, beginning to end, to beginning again, to beginning again, to beginning again. Yeah, we live the life we choose. Sometimes I wonder what the neighbors must have thought they saw. You dancing in the window, me singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing about when the world was wrong. I was singing to you when the world was new. I was singing to you when the world was new. I was singing to you was, and there's songs on there that um, I really used to do some healing. Um,
during in the early, let's see, like 2010. My brother had passed away, and it was really, really sudden and tragic. And there's a couple songs on the record that really, lyrically was kind of me working my way through some of that process of grieving, right? And I know that my older son, Josh, we talked a lot about the song and the words and what it meant. And same with my younger son. We had conversations about it too. We recorded the song live. So drums and me on acoustic guitar and vocals and my younger son on drums. And we were in two separate rooms, but we did the song live and it was just magic. He played a shaker and a drumstick, on his drum kit. Oh, he had two sticks, but he had a shaker in one hand too. So it was just magic. And then, I asked my daughter to sing on some parts and asked my older son to sing on some parts. And it's just, yeah, it was very, very, it was an important song. And there's a couple of those on the record.
You have such a blessing of a family and so many talents, beautiful voices and beautiful talents. It's quite a blessing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I certainly feel that way. And, it's my kids were all raised in music, in a musical house, and they were at rehearsals. They were in recording sessions. I took my two sons on tour with me once. Well, a few times I toured with all of my kids, but my two sons, when they were just little, they were like probably 4 years old and 8 years old, or 4 and 9 or something. I took them on a little tour of the northeastern part of the U.S. And they were just little kids, and they were asleep on the stage. And people said, like, "What are you doing with your kids?" I was just doing a solo tour at the time, and people said, like, "Why do you have your kids with you?" And I just felt like, well, why wouldn't I? This is what I do. I sing, I write songs, and I sing songs, and they've been part of so many rehearsals, so many recording sessions from when they were babies. So they've slept in recording studios, they've slept on stages. They were just raised in that world, so it's very normal to them, right? So yeah, it was never like a separate part of my life where, okay, kids, I'm going to go off and do some music now. It was like, okay, let's get in the car. We got guitars and amplifiers and CDs or T-shirts, and we're going to go to play at a festival, And they were there. We all slept in a tent, and that's what we did.
Absolutely fantastic. I think they wouldn't trade that for anything in the world.
Yeah,
Rob,
right.
how would you feel telling us a little bit for us Berklee students trying to understand creativity process? How do you go about those beautiful things you create, the songs you write, the lyrics, how do you put the chords together, how you come at your grooves, Some people are just like, there are days that I try and just clean all the environment when I'm going to try and feel creative. There are days that I just come straight pressing the recording button, and I think there's people that clean the whole house, others will light up an incense and light up some candles. I don't know, but I would love to hear, how is your process? How do you go about your creations?
I have so much practice creating and removing barriers to creation. That's a big one for me, is removing the barriers. And so, most often the barriers are inside myself or inside other artists, I find. And I run a songwriting camp for young people that are between 8 years old and like 17. And even young kids have already learned not to trust themselves, not to trust their instincts, to follow the rules, to shut up, in school, as an example, and to and to approach things in a linear way and follow the structure. And so my songwriting camp, which actually would be going on right now, by the way, if it wasn't for the pandemic. I really get the kids on the first day, and I've learned so much from the kids and from this process, but on the first night, we meet on a Sunday night during the first week of camp, and I tell them, we're going to just set a couple of ground rules for safety, so everyone can be safe and not feel like they're going to be judged, that they're going to be accepted for who they are. But we just need, I say, can we agree that you're not going to climb in the trees here, and, or you're not going to go in the water by yourselves. It's on a lake, and they all agree to that. And then I say, here's the thing, we're going to do creative writing. We're going to write words, and I'm going to encourage you to do it spontaneously. I'm going to encourage you to write without fear, and to not stop yourself on the way to writing the word on the pad. I don't want you to think, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think this is good enough. I'd never done this before. I don't know how to write a song. So I talk to them about those kind of barriers that we put up, and I say, I'm going to encourage you to do this, and I'm going to assure you that if you don't want to read what you've written out loud, the words, or if you don't want to play your musical idea in front of anyone of the other campers, or even if you don't want to share it with me, that's okay. And I want you to trust me that unless you feel okay about it, you don't have to share any of your ideas, musical or lyrical. And once they see that that is the truth, and usually that gets established the first night, and there's usually kids from previous years. Some kids go for 5-6 years in a row, and they tell the other kids, no one's going to judge you. You don't have to share what you're creating up here. And that kind of blows their minds, and that gives them the freedom then. Very quickly, they do want to share it. They want to share it with their fellow campers, and they want to share it with me. And very quickly, the kids, they're so natural at encouraging each other and supporting each other. They have all this empathy. It hasn't been ground out of them yet. And they're so courageous, right? If you take them out of like a school setting that a lot of kids are in, where, hey, here's the rules, follow the rules, here's the consequences. It's very structured. We're going to do this from 9:15 a.m. until 10:15 a.m. And when they have some freedom and they find out it is safe to create, then I just mostly get out of their way. And I literally ride my bicycle around. We mostly work outside. There's 20 to 25 kids at each session, each of the 2 weeks. And I just keep an eye on them. And if they're talking or they're looking up at the sky by themselves in the grass, I ride by, but I stay 20 feet away. How's it going over there? And if they're just, yeah, good. I'm like, you just thinking, looking at the clouds? And they go, yeah. And when I don't pressure them to write, when I don't say, okay, we'll get writing, I never say that to them. And they write and they write and they write and they create like little wild people. They just create and create and create. Because I also tell them, and I might have even said this to you before, Mauricio, we're going to write or create without fear, and then we're going to edit without mercy. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. We're not going to think about the editing as we're creating. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to get it on the paper or get it on the guitar, whatever it is. And we're going to record it with your phone.
It was amazing. It's like I never forgot. That's one of the first things you ever told me.
So you understand, because we've been through the process a little bit, right? And of course, what I found out is it works with young people. It works with adults, right? It works with everyone. And it's so far, I remember one year at camp, and there's all kinds of things. There's kids on the autism spectrum, kids with behavioral issues in school, kids that have run away from home, all kinds of issues, emotional issues, mental health issues. And I'm not even,
wow. No
one tells me about it, right? So I have kids that really struggle in school for different reasons. And I have geniuses that have already, had offers of record deals and management deals from LA. I mean, crazy stuff. And the whole spectrum of that, the whole gamut of ability levels. And I tell kids, you don't have to play an instrument. You can just show up. You can tap on a guitar. You don't have to play it. You can just play it like a percussion instrument. And then I get kids that are way more proficient than I am on guitar or piano or anything. They're amazing. But it's kind of interesting because I don't look at their file ahead of time. Oh, this is a behavior kid. This kid has behavior problems. Oh, this kid is into drugs, or this. I don't look at that. Oh, this kid's on this medication or that. I mean, I have a background in crisis work and working with kids, so that all comes into play.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it all comes into play. And I don't need to judge them. I don't need to judge, oh, that kid's going to be a problem. Because we tend to do that. We tend to identify what are the challenges here,
So everybody clean slate,
Yes.
As they behave, as they go from there.
Yes.
That's very awesome.
Exactly. And I've certainly learned that that the kid who on the first day, and I can think of it almost, probably half of I've been there for a lot of years, and half the time on the first night, there'll be a kid, and usually a boy, and they want to show everyone how they're not interested. They don't need this. They're going to mess around or try and distract everyone. They're going to do whatever. Or they're going to try being a little bit cold with me, or maybe rude to me, kind of show me who's boss, And I've learned to love those kids and welcome them over the years, because I realize those kids are like me, for one thing. They're like how I was when I was a kid. I went into every situation with my guard up, with my weapons out and my shield up. And I love those kids. They're amazing
back
kids.
then also was the late 70s, early 80s, and it was a different world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are more understanding that kids or anyone, people are going to come in with their issues, right? That's how it's going to work. And I've been a crisis worker working with homeless adults just coming out of prison after 10 years, or coming out of jail, after 4 months, but it's the 12th time they've been in jail and they have no possessions, or they're coming out of rehab or detox, or that's a marriage that's breaking up, or there's been a house fire. This kind of crisis work really, it gets you in touch with your humanity and your empathy, or you're not going to be able to do it, honestly. So I learned through that work that whatever somebody came in with into my office, or if I was meeting them somewhere, they came by it honestly. And that gave me a whole new respect for people. And I find it very easy to, that translates very easily to youth, because, and youth is really, in my mind, anything up to 25, right? The brain is still developing. And so, I empathize with them and I respect them. And that is just another barrier that gets torn down. And then, like I said, once they understand they're going to be respected and they're going to be safe emotionally, physically in that space, the creativity is just like an explosion. And honestly, like I said, I'm like riding my bike around on this big hill. I call it Songwriter Mountain. And we're out there over this beautiful lake, and the kids are just riding by themselves, or a group of 2 or 5, and they're recording throughout the process, and we're making music videos up there, and they don't need a lot of support. If someone's stuck, I say, hey, are you doing all right? I'm stuck on these words. I'm stuck on the bridge. And then you want me to come over? I'll ride my bike over, and, we'll work through a little bit or work on the lyrics. But they just need a little bit of support. And it's the same with adults, is what I found. Most of us have something inside us that we want to say, or that we could say. Maybe we are not in touch with it, but it's there.
She
whether it's something wonderful that's happened in our lives or something that we're having difficulty processing. All those things are just right there, right under the surface. And so I just invite them to just put their pen in their hand and put it on the paper and let's just write, and they do 100% of the time. Hundreds of kids now over the years, and now again the last few years I've been working more with adults, and everybody's got it in them. Apparently I haven't met someone yet who was like, I have no thoughts, I have no memories, I have no awareness of what's going around me or inside me. I have nothing to say. I haven't found that yet.
Well, there's hope for me then yet.
Of course there is.
Wow, that's awesome. I find myself writing songs that from people can write 6-7 songs in one day. Some people would write a song in a month, and for me it's just like some things come right out the bat, and some songs will take 2-3 years for me to finish because I'm just never satisfied with it until it hits a direction or it hits the wording for the subject. It needs to hit a nerve on me or something. You just make me feel alive. Then I know I did something.
Well, when we first started out, I was thinking, how do you know when the rhythm thing is right? How do you know when you have a good idea for a lyric? And to me, it's always based on feel. What does it feel like? And I trust what I feel like. I trust what my collaborators feel like. And it's like, if it feels right, it's right. Let's go with it. And let's follow that. And, if you're writing a song and you're trying to get, you're hoping to get it on someone's album, let's say it's a country singer, I'm just going to make up an example. Well, then you might want to keep that in mind as you're writing and recording. Sometimes I have opportunities to, over the years, to be writing a song for a movie or maybe a TV show or whatever it is. And we should think about what's the subject of the movie or what's the theme of this episode of this TV show, whatever it is. I'm not saying, but there's still freedom in that. I guess that's the thing. There's still freedom in accepting those sort of guides. When the Riverdogs, we were offered a record deal, through this Italian label called Frontiers, and they offered us the deal in 2016, I think it was, or it might have been 2015. I think it was 2015. And so the band, we said, let's make a record. That's amazing.
And then at some point, the California.
I'm talking of the California album.
Awesome.
Yeah, which would be great if you intersperse any music or music video, you could put some of that music in here if that's what you're going to do.
Or not enough, it's one or the
Yeah.
But I remember the label said, I think it was the head of the label said, "We love you guys so much. We love your music so much, but we really want a record that sounds like the first one." Our debut album on Epic Records, which was released in June of 1990. And someone in the band was like, "Oh man, we don't want a label telling us what our record should sound like." And I said,
I
because
never
right
thought
away,
of it that way. That's interesting. Wow, that's right.
yeah. So right away, I thought they've just given us a gift. They've given us a direction. And right away, because I'm so practiced now at this kind of work, immediately I thought, oh my gosh, what if we wrote this album as if it was literally like 2 years after the debut? And I said to the guys in the band, like, what if it's 1992 right now?
Awesome.
It's not 2015. What if it's 1992, 1993? We released the first album. We've been touring constantly and living our lives. And I was like, oh my gosh, lyrically, I can continue the stories from the first album and do it in a subtle way so people wouldn't know. I wouldn't use, we had a song called Spooky on the first Riverdogs record.
Tommy got a medal in the war, and he never wears it. Man's got a hole in his head, and nobody cares. Tommy hears voices at night, and nobody's there. He'll never get used to being half a man. There's a fire burning the sky tonight, come to take me home. Pull me from a cold black river, if the angels come. There's a fire burning the sky tonight. They buried his wife in 49, and nobody came. 40 years later, Tommy's still living in pain. He's still waiting for that sweet girl to come back again. He'll never get used to being half a man. There's a fire burning the sky tonight, come to take me home. Pull me from a cold black river, if the angels come. There's a fire burning the sky tonight, don't leave me alone. Take away this sadness I am dying from. I am dying from. I am dying from.
So I thought, I'm not going to use the name Tommy because that was the subject of the song. I said, I'm not going to make it that obvious, but in my mind, I can be writing these songs and continuing these songs, and I have the freedom. This could be 2 years later, but it could also be now. I could be writing about the grandson of Tommy in the story from the first album. So to me, it was just like ever expanding possibilities. And everyone in the band was like, Oh yeah, that's fantastic. And of course, lyrically, especially, it's so great. We hadn't even started writing, and we already had like a concept album. The concept was just writing a record at a certain point in time, but it was a real gift when they said, "Yeah, we want one that sounds like the first record," because, well, yeah, it's going to sound like us. We're still going to be playing guitars and bass and keyboards and drums and singing. So yeah, it was amazing. We had done a project. I think it was a record called World Gone Mad. I can't remember the year. It might have been 2007 or something.
And I'm Rob Lamothe. We're the Riverdogs. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. Good night.
And we didn't have a direction, and we didn't have a budget. We just, let's get together sometimes when we can, and let's record some stuff and write some stuff. So it was a little bit disjointed. It wasn't really cohesive. And this record, it was like, yeah, we have a cohesive direction from day one. And it was super easy to write. I think I might have told you before, we wrote the first songwriting trip. I went to California, to LA, and we wrote 6 songs in 3 days. And then we kind of laid down like a demo in our drummer studio. And then the second trip, we wrote another 6 songs in 3 days and did the same thing. We kind of laid down like bed tracks that we could record over later. We needed 12 songs, and we wrote 12 songs. It was just so effortless. And I think I've said to you, I might have said this to you before, that I was kind of the main songwriter on the first album. And this time we didn't discuss, well, is Rob going to write most of the music? We didn't even discuss it. We just, got together. No planning before we got together. And we're lucky, by the way. There's some luck involved in all of this. But we got together. I had written a couple things just so we had something, but we didn't even need them. We ended up, they became the first 2 songs in the record, American Dream and The Revolution Starts Tonight, that I showed up with. I had worked on them with my younger son, who's a drummer. And we wrote those 2 songs in 90 minutes, my son and I, and then I took them to the band. But we just wrote together in a room. The rest of the album, the other 10 songs, are us in a room, Viv with riff ideas on his cell phone that he had, cataloged somewhere or other. And we just wrote the songs together, 10 of the songs together in a room, looking at each other in a circle. And again, we didn't plan that. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. We just showed up to frickin' write some songs. It's, when I say it out loud to you, it kind of still surprises me.
I think it's awesome because there is a lot to be said about the chemistry you guys have as a band. You had this chemistry back then at that age, but as everybody moved on with their lives and it got where we are now, the chemistry is still the same. When you guys connect, it flows artistically that way because your personalities and your musical artistic skills, they're all kind of aligned up in a certain way, and it's just magic happens every time.
very much so. And we didn't like I said, we didn't talk about it ahead of time. We just showed up to write. So we were all trusting that it was going to work. Now that's another one. We all felt safe working together. So I'm not afraid to make up lyrics in front of them, lyrics that make no sense. As soon as something comes to my mind, I'll just start singing it and I'll make sure I record it, and we wrote the songs that way. And, we had that history. So we assumed we were going to get in a room and write a bunch of songs. And that's exactly what we did.
That's absolutely fantastic. I wish I could have seen some of that. It just, any of us would have been fortunate to see that happening before our very eyes. It's going down and happening just like that. Wow.
It's such an amazing structure to work in. When we were done recording, I said to the band, when we decided what we were going to do early on, when the label said, we want you to make a record that sounds like the first one, which could have been so confining, but instead it was liberating.
I think they knew what they
but that
were
was
asking you guys for, because, as a fan, I can say that first album hit home in such a special way. It marked an era for me. So I think
Amazing.
the label knew a couple things about that when they made the
Well,
request.
the thing is, the people that we were in contact with are huge music fans. That label is very much about the music. I don't think they're making billions of dollars. They're releasing music that they love, which is not always the best business sense, some people would say. But when we were done recording and getting ready to mix, I think we might have been in the mix stage, and I said to everybody, we were on a conference call, and I said, we hit a home run. Like, we nailed it. We did exactly what we set out to do with this record. And I said to everybody, for me, we already have a successful record. We've already got a hit smash album because we did what we set out to do. And that, to me, that's the amazing accomplishment. I would love to sell 5 million records. I'm not going to lie. I'd love to sell 5 million records, or 500,000 records, or 50,000 records, whatever. But I like not worrying about that when I'm creating. I like to just create and not think about, is this going to sell? Would this be like a radio song? Could this be a song that we could market? I prefer not to think about that, because for me, that stuff gets in the way. That's left me with probably less money than somebody who was more strategic would have in their bank account. And so many of my friends from the music world have more money in their bank account than I do. And that's, I made a lot of choices to do those projects that, were labors of love. But I can look back at a long career of writing and recording and feel, like I said, very, very proud, unreservedly proud of the choices I made. That's not bad.
That's very inspiring. What you're going to be working next, or what are you working on now
Right.
that you can talk about it? We also understand
Right.
legalities.
The thing that I could add about my own, like, personal, in my studio, which is where I am today, like my personal process every day, is I'm always working on things that like I said, people that I love, and artists that I respect, and that starts me off right. Just today, last night and today. Last night I was working on one of the projects that has been kind of one of my main focuses over the last year, and I love the music so much, and I love the artist's voice so much, and I play guitar in his band, and so to work on his music is such a pleasure. This is a friend of mine named Logan Stotts, and I listen to his voice, and it blows my mind. So it's pretty easy to sit down, which I was doing today, and just be creative. We had like 2 versions of a song. One version we did in my studio with a click track. all the proper microphones and everything. And we have this gorgeous vocal and lovely simple guitar on it. And then we had another version that he did. I had lent him a microphone to use for a few months, and he recorded a version at his house, not perfectly, not the perfect mic, not the perfect mic placement. His guitar, his vocal, and his sister singing harmonies all live off the floor with one mic. And then he added these like magical guitar textures, electric guitar textures, like magical stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I could. And he asked me to play some guitar. I talked to him this morning. He's like, oh, could you add some guitar to that? Some electric guitar. I was like, yeah, sure, cool. And he meant the version we did here in my studio. But he had these magical parts on his version. And I figured out a way to fly those parts in. They're in a different key. They're at a different tempo. They're at a random tempo. But I could take his parts, these cool parts, pitch them differently, just with really easily with the software, pitch them down a half a step. And now I've got this like magic happening, right? And I could put a couple things in time a little because they weren't played in time. And then I was like, oh, I got some ideas for guitar now. And I could weave some stuff in between what he did. And it's so gorgeous and so trippy, So there's that. And then I'm also working on this other project, an album. It's going to be 12 songs. And it's I'm kind of wrapping up the 10th song here. And they're all being mixed. Well, 9 of them have been mixed. I'm on the 10th song. And it's the same thing where I open up the track and it's like we got Rhonda Smith, a bass player who played with Prince and Beck on bass. And, that one's got my son Xander on drums, but some of the songs have Mike Mangini from Dream Theater playing drums on 3 or 4 songs on this album. Vivian Campbell from Riverdogs is doing guitar on a song right now as we speak. Just all these amazing players, and Jimmy Wallace from Nashville on keyboards. And it's pretty easy to be inspired to write lyrics to that, or for me to add my guitar to that.
I can only imagine what that would be like. Wow.
It's like a dream, honestly. I'm so privileged. I've worked really hard to get to this point where I have a legit studio in my house, and I have a good radar for the things that I say yes to, Again, I base it on, do I like the people and do I love the music? And that's led me, it's gotten me this far where these are 2 like big projects, but I got, other smaller ones going on at the same time, a 3 or 4 song EP or whatever it is with other artists, right? And it just seems to be never ending. And it's all very low key. I'm not a big famous artist anywhere. But there's so much
beg to
work.
disagree on that note, but okay.
Well, I'm not
You're speaking that the Logan Stats vocalist that blew your mind, and I'm thinking, well, here's a guy that blows my mind. Speaking of somebody else that blew his mind, how about that?
Yeah, well, that's the kind of stuff I get to do. That's the level of artists and creative people I get to work with, is people that blow my mind. And this is just how my life is, and I don't have a plan. I've never had a strategy. I might be strategizing a little bit. My wife and I were talking the other day, like, there's some people in Nashville that maybe I should write with, and maybe think about making some money. But I make a living. We're good, but I have no complaints. I've been a professional musician for 40 years, literally. And even a little bit more, maybe 42, 43 years that I've been getting paid to do it as a songwriter and a singer. And now,
so you have stories to tell.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a long time. That's a lot of music. That's a lot of touring. It's a lot of recording, writing songs with amazing people. Right, just those are some of my favorite kind of adventures. I never talk about those in interviews where people are asking about like the rock stories. It's like. And the touring stories, it's also, going to Nashville and getting to write with incredible writers that I that I've had the chance to write with down there, and in other places in California, in Florida. I've been so fortunate. So maybe I got off track with that answer, but my personal creative process is, again, I have all the tools. I've got an electric piano, a synthesizer. I got two drum kits here. I got my bass. I got, 7 or 8 guitars, which isn't even a lot of guitars for some people, and I got a good microphone collection. What else do you need? It's like a playground in here. It's small, but there's a little sound system if we want to jam. Got a bunch of amplifiers. I don't know. I'm like a kid playing in a playroom every day.
But those are your tools for your work,
Yeah.
And you feel
Yeah.
it's good to have this variety so that you have, you can withdraw from one and from another as the tone asks for, or the mood sets, or whatever, or just because you feel like a Mesa Boogie today doesn't mean you're not going to play a Fender or a Marshall next day,
That's right. Yeah. No, you get it because you have a similar setup. We've discussed it before, so that means I can lay down a reference bass on. We were playing like a really heavy rock song. Logan is putting on his album called 6 Miles, and it's really heavy guitars, heavy drums, heavy vocals. And, it started out with like a funky little drum loop that he made with GarageBand on his Mac. That was the tempo was hilarious. It was like 172.8436 or something. He looped something at a kind of an unusual tempo.
Well,
but who cares? It worked.
Right.
And a funky kind of mechanical drum thing, but that was really aggressive. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go follow that aggression on guitar. And then Xander, my son Xander, came in and did drums in that song, and he followed the aggression of the guitar. So now we had aggressive, like, electric guitar and drums. And then I laid down a really aggressive, just a reference bass. And then Logan did his vocal a couple of weeks ago. Super aggressive, just amazing rock vocal, incredible. But it's because I could lay down a quick reference bass in the middle of, before Xander played drums, I was like, oh, let me lay down a quick reference bass for you. And I just bashed on the thing. But as you know, when you have those tools hanging on your wall, or in my case, I have just a stack. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but I have there's some of my guitars over there, right? So, they're always, they're always close by. And, you can just grab what you need. I got a couple of, classical, like nylon string guitars, just have all those different flavors, right? So
I think you like or approve of or support emotional creating, emotional writing, emotional pressing rec, and let's see what's happening in the performance right now.
Yeah, then you're ready for it, right? You got the tools, and you trust that you can get a performance or a sound you're looking for. Maybe it's not a perfect performance, but it's the sound, or maybe it's the killer, maybe it's the amazing performance.
It will definitely be authentic and true.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll take authentic any day over.
Right.
Oops, I missed the note.
Yeah, put it all in there, right?
Yeah. I'm willing to commit to a performance, right? So if it feels good, hey, there's the performance. Oh, maybe I sang a flat note, but I haven't used auto tune yet.
Yeah, I never heard you using that. It's just your voice has always. Speaking of voice, that song that we were writing, "I'll Find a Way."
Yes.
I'm not gonna sing it. It must be your voice. I couldn't find. It's just there's no texture I can make that was so perfect. So it was so. It dressed the music like a glove. It was just right on the money.
Well, I have so much practice doing that. Did I send you a version without my vocal on it?
You did not.
Okay. I mean, I could do that because that would give you a chance to really sing with that track, right?
No. That music, I think it was written for your voice. Unless you're busy, you don't want to tackle, that's something else. But
no,
that is
Yeah,
that was
I'm
was born
I'm comfortable
was
with that.
born and written for you. It's
Well, I'm
just
happy to sing it, so I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I was, I was happy with the lyrics, and you brought in a twist to the lyrics that I thought it added a lot of value and just made the song much more amazing. But I honestly wasn't finding the right groove or the right attitude with the voice, the right texture in the voice.
Okay.
But you
Yeah.
came and pressed rec and you just went on recording right off the bat like it was already. And I was like, excuse me, I'll pick my jaw back from the floor. It's still bouncing there. What?
You know that I remember I asked you if it was okay to post a little piece of that online, and yeah, I've had a few people that have mentioned it. That mentioned that just that little minute long snippet I put there online. But
Maybe the song could be just that minute long, or maybe we could write a couple more verses. Let's finish that song. I guess
yeah,
people want it. Let's finish it.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Um,
So many times, in so many ways, you hurt me so deep inside. You were the one with all my love and trust, but you threw it all away, left it to rust. But don't worry, baby, one bright sunny day I'll come back to you, I'll find a way.
What would you tell us? Would you have an advice for us as students here?
well, yeah, I think I kind of I feel like I talked a bit about the projects that I've got coming up or that I'm working on now. So yeah, I would like to talk about this a little bit, and then maybe I'll also talk about. Well, I guess they're connected. Like, what am I going to do next? What's in the future? This is how I would go into class every day if I was a student. I would go in and I would trust the teachers, who have that experience. You and I both know now at this point in my life, I realize how valuable people's experience is, right? And yes, it might not apply exactly to my situation, but I find I can always learn something from people, whether they're professional musicians or songwriters or not. If you're going to be a creative, if you want to exercise your creative muscle and get better at being creative, the way to do that is to pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on in your own mind as you're in class. Pay attention to what someone's saying. Pay attention to what does that room feel like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like in that room? What are your feelings as you start a new project? Are you scared? Are you confident? And just accept that and embrace it. And I talk about creating without fear, but also sometimes there is fear. And like, what else can we do but appreciate ourselves for being able to feel fear, really? Now, if it prevents us from stepping into the classroom or prevents us from picking up a guitar or opening a book or starting a conversation, that's another story. Then we got to practice the real basics, really, really, really basics of just stepping outside of our usual routines, right? And like, I'm scared, but I really like what this other student is doing, and I want to kind of find out where they're coming from. I like what they're saying, or I like what I've heard, and dig down and do something that we don't know we can do. Do something anyway, even though we're afraid of it, right? And whether that's reaching out to a fellow student or reaching out to a professor or picking up a new instrument for a project, whatever it is, and then if the barrier is ourselves, which I mentioned so often it is, then we have to practice moving forward despite the barrier and getting, let's remove the barrier. And sometimes that takes practice. We go back to our old habits, right? So, to me, it's about stepping outside of our comfort zones. It's about developing new habits. When I've got my songwriting students and we're up at camp, everybody comes in with their thing, their, like I said, their behaviors or their fears or their expectations. And you get 25, 28 people up on a mountain talking about songs and writing songs. They're not all going to be on the same page, right? So I really, encourage people in those situations and encourage myself. We create the camp in real time. They create it with me. I don't just lead them. I don't just, here's what we're going to do. Here's the structure. I say, what are we going to do today? And let's see what emerges. So, all that to say, this is all, I'm still talking about just the starting point, This is advice on how to start, how to take the first step, right? How to write the first word. And it's all about, leaving some preconceptions behind, being courageous, forgiving ourselves, for maybe not playing or singing or thinking of the perfect word or note, and embracing it, embracing the opportunities, embracing our own quirks of our own personalities, What else are we going to do, right? We got to find a way to be free if we're going to create and innovate.
Be an artist, right? Be free. Art must be free.
Yeah.
Music must be free. Songwriting must be free. It's all art, and it must be free. It must be free, or it's not art, per se, right?
Yeah,
You got a conundrum there.
Yeah, and it could be something else that has value. And like I said, being strategic, and maybe today I'm not going to create art, but I'm going to try and get a song that maybe somebody, a big artist, would record on their album. Well, maybe there's an art to that. There's an art to giving yourself permission to do that on that day. Maybe on Thursdays, I'm just going to write crappy songs that I think somebody might record. But I'm kind of serious too, though. Maybe not a crappy song, but maybe a song that doesn't come from my heart. Maybe it's a bit calculated. Maybe there's a strategy behind it. Well, that's okay too, right? Like, why don't we give ourselves permission to do that as well?
I don't know. Maybe someone came to you and hired you to do a soundtrack for a game, or a company intro that they're going to present in their big speech in some convention somewhere. So whatever your work is going to be, the first 3 to 5 minutes of bring them in or something. So you're going to absolutely have to use your creation skills, your talent, your artistic self to do something pretty much, canned in a commercial package.
Yeah.
Because you're delivering to specifics, right?
Yeah, we need a 30-second intro theme. The CEO of the corporation, they're going to be showing pictures of his successes on a screen, and we need some kind of theme that builds up to him walking out, and and he likes this kind of music or that kind of music. And you could say, well, I can't do that, I'm an artist. Or you could embrace it and say, well, I kind of had a similar situation recently where I've been kind of getting reacquainted with editing video, because I'm finding that I enjoy it. And
Me too. I'm having a blast with it.
Yeah, it's a different, it's just a different set of tools, and I'm really finding it really interesting, and been involved in a few. Well, I was asked to do. Somebody asked me if I could do kind of like almost like a wedding video in a way. It's like that kind of, like, really kind of commercial, very straight. Some music, some nice pictures, and some video, and I could have said, well, no, I'm an artist. I want to, I need to capture what's in my soul. And instead I thought, what, if I say yes to this, first of all, I'm going to have to really kind of dive into some software to do what they want me to do. And I'm going to learn some stuff. Second of all, it might lead to more work, more paid work. Well, that's not a bad thing. And so I went for it. And it was just sort of a chance for me to get reacquainted with my own software, and that I hadn't used for a couple of years. I've been doing everything on my phone, right? Just making little iMovie videos with my phone here and there. And this was like, I'm going to, get on my laptop and really kind of dive into the software. And what are the shortcuts, and like really get reacquainted with. I spent a day doing that. Well, so So that's what it was. It's sort of seeing it as an opportunity. I'm so familiar with my Pro Tools software, my recording software. I mean, I don't even think about what I'm doing. I don't even know what I'm doing. It just is like happening in real time. It's quite wild. You may have experienced that kind of thing where you're like, oh well, I just did a whole bunch of steps with a keyboard shortcuts and I don't even know what I did.
Second nature to
it just
you, just
happens.
second
Right?
nature.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I was like, well, if I get into this video, making a video like this, and it was 14 minutes long. It was a big, that's a lot of music and pictures and framing stuff and how stuff going to move. And wow, it was a lot of work. And I realized I'm going to have to really dig back into how does this software work. And of course, then at the end, I felt really gratified that I created something that was exactly what the client was hoping for. It was like a hit record, I was like, and I knew as I was wrapping it up, I know they're going to love this. I know this is going to work for them. And literally, can't remember now if it was this morning or no, it was yesterday. I got a call asking about doing some more work, right? So, and as you know, we need content. We songwriters, we singers, we guitar players, we artists of any kind. Whether whether you make dentures or you make butter sculptures or you whatever, we all need good content because that's how we build our brand and how we market ourselves. Is what's your content? What do you got online? Because that's where people are going to go look, right? So it's actually a really fun time to be 62 years old and kind of like, I'm going into the video world now. I bought a gimbal, the little
awesome. You're giving me a lot of confidence. Yes.
Good. Well, and everything I'm saying is from experience. When I say, you do trial and error and you find out what works. But I've gotten to the point where even I don't even know what doesn't work anymore. I don't even know, what does that even mean? Oh, it didn't work. We were trying to do this and it didn't work. Because everything, we can get something out of everything, and my wife doesn't, she doesn't really use the word fail. If you start thinking that I can't fail, the only thing you can do is not do it. If you ask me to write a song and I just sit here, I can unsuccessfully write a song by just sitting here and not doing it. But
it's a way of not getting the job done, right?
Yeah, but you really have to make a conscious effort to say, oh, we failed. Because the truth is, if you did something, you've got something to build on. Maybe not where you thought you were going with a project. And I've had the joy of working with a young artist.
So you're saying that failing is important for the development and for achieving,
Oh, I think so, because I've gone on songwriting trips, let's say to Nashville, or even, I remember once, this is when I was still living in Los Angeles, and I remember having, I went into a studio at a house up in the Hollywood Hills with a successful songwriter dude. And basically, I went in, and within a few moments, he had turned his back to me, and he was just working on his computer with his drum loops and his stuff, and I was behind him. And he just wrote a song without me. And a couple times I said, maybe like, and I'd say a word or maybe a sound or something. And he'd go, no. And he'd just keep working. So you could say that was a failure, except I learned I either want to write with people that I know and I trust and I love, or I'm just going to courageously go into a situation where I don't know the person or the music, which I don't do much of anymore because I find it's more efficient to work with people that I know and love and trust. And there's so many of them. It's not like, there's just that rare person I can collaborate with. I find you can collaborate easily with most people. This was a rare thing where the dude just was going to write the song without me, and I was like an extra body in the room. I guess I should have made coffee or something, but Um, yeah. So
What do you say to that,
I
right?
learned.
But
I learned.
to each his own, right? What do you say to that? It's okay.
Yeah, and in my mind, at some point, 30 minutes in, 45 minutes, as I kept trying to contribute, and he wasn't interested in those contributions, then I just thought, okay, well, I'll spend another 15, 20 minutes or an hour here. I'll watch what he's doing to see maybe he's doing something interesting, on the keyboard or with the computer or whatever. And he wasn't. I didn't learn anything that day from him, except be careful who you're going to invest your time with as far as collaborating, right? So I learned a good lesson that day, and you move on.
Yeah, well,
No
everybody has
failures.
their day get stumped as well. You're just like, you get stuck in that one paragraph and you can't go anywhere with it. No matter what you try, it's just like that song that you don't want, but it's in your head and you will repeat to oblivion until the end of the day or something. Yeah, well, we all have our days, I suppose.
Got to go with
Oh,
it.
Rob, fantastic. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. It's been a blessing. It's been a great time talking to you, and absolutely enjoy your stories. And
Thank you so much, Mauricio. Thank you so much. Okay, my friend, I'm going to go have some dinner, and we'll carry on this conversation again.
great. Thank you very much. Much love.
I'm honored that you asked me.
I'm
Thank you.
honored you accepted. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to play a song that Carrie, our bass player, and Ronnie, our drummer, just heard for the first time about 30 minutes ago. It's called Starting to Feel Like a Broken Heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, live in Countdown Cafe, the Riverdogs!
This one's dedicated to Carol.
Oh, Nick, man, you're going to...
You tell me that I take things much too hard. There is nothing wrong with living like we are. You try to ease my mind, and I try to believe, but it's starting to feel like a broken heart to me. Broken heart to me.